Welcome to the Align Life podcast by yours truly, Dr. Tiffany. How about we get out that magnifying glass and look at every part of your life, the awesome, the suck, and everything in between. There's so much beauty in you. Stop being afraid of what isn't good enough and let's double down on what is together. It's about your truth and your life, aligned. Hello, my people. Today we have Mandy George. Oh my gosh, you guys are gonna just love this. I didn't know her personally, but I've been following her on Facebook. She ran for West Fargo City Commission and got it June 9th. And I was just watching her messaging, watching how she puts herself out there. And the best word that I can describe her as, before I knew her actually, in the interview, was transparent. And courageous, of course, because it takes courage to be transparent, but man, she puts it out there. She welcomes positive feedback. She welcomes criticism. And if we could learn anything about her, is that it's always worth it. And one of the quotes that she says is, "What if I fail? But darling, what if you fly?" That's one of her mantras. It's how she lives. It's how she makes decisions, and very connected into her values, very connected in what she stands for. And that is so appealing. She will create a tribe behind her because of that, because of putting herself out there and standing for something. And when we stand strongly towards something, for something, we're going to get stronger criticism. That's the sign that we know we're on the right path to make a difference in our lives. So I welcome Mandy, and she will talk about everything as to how she busted through her limiting beliefs and how she just kept going no matter what feedback she got. And I think that's one of the main themes of what we talked about was transparency, courage, and then defying the odds. From a pilot to a single mom to now being on the city commission, so a woman in politics, she has defied the odds. And what if you did? What if you said, what if I fly? How would your life look different? To not look back on regret and resentment of not doing something because you were afraid, but instead knowing that if you, quote, fail, you will always learn a lesson that gets you closer to flying. So have the courage, be transparent, live in your values, and create the circle of influence around you so that you can fly. And when you do, oh my gosh, watch that girl go. Hey guys, here we are again. Today we have Mandy George. Hi, Mandy.
Hi, Dr. Tiffany.
Okay, so a lot of my interviews have been people that I know, people that I know their work. I admire them on social media. All these things, and I do not know you. So this is going to be super awesome. Well, I kind of know you after our little chat, but what really inspired me to talk to you today is really social media. Here are the gifts of social media, right? There are a ton of gifts, which is why we continue to use it. But it's to make connections. It's to have a little bit of an idea of what somebody stands for. And that's one thing I love about you, or I love about you before I even knew you, is you stand for things. Like we talked before we started, there's so many people that lie in the gray, right? They watch people who do this on the far right and this on the far left, and they might not like either of them, but they may not have the courage to step outside of what they're afraid of to actually do the work. And you do, and I want to talk to you about everything. So let's start with the first question I asked you was, well, it's kind of about flying, but the stat you said was 5% of aviation is female, and I am that. So I want you to first talk about kind of your purpose in your life of a little bit of defying the odds. And I don't mean that you do it because you're trying to prove a point, because that's not really what it is, but like the fuel that you have in you pushes past what you're scared of every single time. So can you just like start a little bit with your life up to this point, and how you got here and how you see it?
Absolutely. So going through college, it was kind of a struggle for me because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do for a living. I tried out several different majors. I tried out a couple of different colleges. Finally, I decided on sociology, not because I wanted to go into that for a field. I just thought it was, kind of interesting and something to graduate with. So here I am getting close to graduation, and I'm kind of freaking out because I'm just like, what am I going to do for a living? I still have no idea what I'm going to do. So I started just kind of talking to different people and getting an idea of some different careers. And a friend of a friend was a flight attendant. And honestly, that started sounding really interesting because she gets to travel and fly on cool airplanes. And I thought, you know what, that sounds like an amazing career. So anyway, so I started looking more into aviation type industries. One day I'm driving down 19th Avenue in Fargo, and I see this new building going up, and it's the Fargo Air Museum. I'm like, oh, I should check that out. So I go to the door, and they're like, oh, they're not quite open for business yet. Well, I see right next door, there's a building. It says flight lessons on the front of the building. I'm like, yo, I've never even noticed that. I should go check that out. So I went next door. I, went into the building and talked to the guy, the owner, and I signed myself up for an introductory lesson. Took that first flight lesson. I'm like, oh, this is the most amazing thing in the whole world. I just love this. I'm like, I don't want to be in the back of the plane. I want to fly the plane. This is awesome. So I worked really hard. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And when I was going through lessons, I thought I was really airline geared. I thought I'm going to be an airline pilot. That's what I want to do. And worked really hard. My pivot in Fargo, I did go to UND, tried the aviation program up there for a while, and discovered it wasn't quite for me since I'd already finished. Well, I'd been through 6 years of college at that point. So I'm just like, I didn't want to do another 4 years up here. So I looked for an accelerated training program where I could get a loan. And so I found a little school in Albert Lea, Minnesota, that was perfect for me. So I went down there, completed all of my other ratings, instrument, commercial, multi-engine, all of my instructor certificates, and then came back to Fargo and started teaching right away, because that's usually what you do to start building hours. So I started teaching. It went really good. I loved teaching. And then I had met a man at that time who was another flight instructor, and we actually opened our own business for a while and did some teaching just at our own little flight school. But that wasn't my dream, was to end up being a teacher and a flight instructor for life, really. So then I ended up flying freight. And so at first I was flying for Corporate Air, which is a FedEx freight company. And that was out of Grand Forks. So I was driving back and forth to Grand Forks every day. I was the only female freight pilot based in North Dakota at that time. So it's definitely something, most women don't go into. And of course, some of my coworkers are kind of, skeptical because I was, in my 20s, I'm a girl or whatever, and just kind of like, oh, I don't know if she's going to work out, but I passed all the tests, same as everybody else, and it went really good. From there, I got a job for Encore Air Cargo, flying Metroliners, and that was a UPS feeder. And what was nice about that one is I didn't have to commute to Grand Forks anymore, because that was a route from Fargo to Watertown to Sioux Falls every day. And again, when I started, I'm in a class with some guys, and they're just, again, kind of looking at me like, I don't know, can she cut it? It's just whatever. But same thing, I had to pass all the same tests as everybody else. And I was the first woman with the company to get single pilot type rated in the Metros. And there was no other women freight pilots in North Dakota at that point. So I was I wasn't doing it, trying to make a stance or anything. It's like, I'm doing it because I love to fly. That's my only reason. I want to be flying airplanes. I love this. This is what I want to do. It was coincidental, really, that I was the only woman, but I did have to push harder and work harder to prove that I can do it just as well as the guys. Totally. So then at that point, during that time, I was at a point in my life where I'm just like, you know what, I'm ready to be a mom. I really want to have a baby. So I did take a break from flying for a while, just to focus on, my baby when she was little, and having, being with her and everything. So I did take a little bit of break from flying. I came back to it kind of full time when she was about 3, and got hired by Titan Machinery to fly an airplane for them. And then that was interesting too, because I was flying around, a lot of middle-aged men, we'll put it that way. And Oh, it's interesting because you hear people talk and like, I had hear whispers. They're like, "Oh my God, is that the pilot? Oh my God." You know, they're like freaking out. So you hear a lot of that kind of a thing, you know, behind your back where it's like, if it was a guy, nobody would have said a word, you know? So that's just, you know, additional things you kind of have to deal with. Eventually Titan sold their airplanes. I ended up flying for a private group of individuals for a while. And then eventually Bell Bank calls me up. And you know, even with Bell Bank, I had some additional challenges. They had one other guy pilot at that time, and it was an issue because it did come up. They're like, "Well, I don't know if we can hire a woman to work that closely with a man. I don't know." You know, it's just like, really? I had to go through like a big interview process, you know, that since then we've hired other pilots since, and I'm the only one to date that's had to go through a formal interview process with like a board of, you know, executives and everything else. So it is different, you know, being a woman. And sometimes too, I've had people say right to my face, you know, "I don't want to fly with you because you're a girl." I've had people like, you know, they'll see me in the left seat and they're just, you know, "I don't feel comfortable with her in the left seat." You know, I've had people, you know, I'm just, wow, you know, just things that you would never say to a guy. And a lot of times, you know, if I am flying with another guy, you know, sometimes they fly two pilots, sometimes they fly one pilot, and they have no idea that I'll sometimes have more than twice the experience as, you know, my male counterpart, you know. Right. And it's just, they just always assume I'm not qualified, I'm not experienced, I must be new, or I'm not as good. So these definitely challenges I've had to deal with. But once people fly with me, even once or twice, then they're usually like, "Oh yeah, okay, she's fine." But it's that extra challenge of just people being comfortable with me, right, you know, instead of a guy.
So I think one of the words that I just wrote down in that that story is just kind of a life of challenge, and that's not perceived challenge, I would say, right from the outside. And so many people, that's how they make their decisions, because if they're not accepted from their peers or the external environment, they say, "I don't want to do it." So did it ever like come into your brain of like, really, you don't think I'm good enough? Fine then. Either number one, I'm gonna prove it to you in an ego way. There's differences, right? Yep. Or fine, I'm just not gonna do this anymore. This is hard. Like, did that ever enter into your mind along these years?
Quitting never entered my mind, because I love to fly. That's like who I am. That's in my blood. That's like, I'm a pilot, and this is what I do. So I've never thought about quitting. I've only ever thought about, you know what, I'm just going to work harder. I'm going to be better. I'm going to show these people that I'm like a great pilot, and just prove to them, you know, based on my skills and based on how the flights go, that, you know, I belong in the cockpit, and, you know, you're safe flying with me, and I'm, you know, just try and make myself better.
Okay. So where else in your life does that show up?
So, that's, well, I mean, okay. So with the commissioner thing, you know, that's definitely, that's been a thing. So, you know, a very small, you know, smaller percentage of women run for public office too. Now it's bigger than aviation. So with women in politics, I think it's 25%. So bigger than 5%. We're still a minority of women that run. And I think the number one reason I've heard is because of confidence issues. Is that, you know, people just, "Oh, I couldn't do that. You know, oh, I'm too nervous to do that." And I get it, because it is really nerve-wracking. And there were times when I was running for commissioner that I really questioned myself. I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if I can do this, you know, and I don't, you know, am I smart enough? Am I brave enough? Am I whatever?" But what I did instead is I just studied harder. I worked harder, you know, I'm trying to, you know, read all these budgets and watch all these commission meetings and study everything I can. And I just try to work harder and harder. So I'm like, I got to be better. Because I don't want anybody to look at me like I'm not smart enough or not good enough. So it kind of pushed me to work harder. But so, yeah, it's just, you know, if you're scared, if you're nervous, there's no reason you can't, but you just keep going after it and work harder. And unfortunately, I think sometimes as a woman, you are forced to be better to get equal, you know, credibility.
Totally.
Yeah.
Forced to be better to get equal credibility. Interesting. Okay. So I want to talk, before we started recording, do you remember that quote that you said to me? I want to talk about that quote a little bit because I think this will resonate with so many women. Well, so many anything, but you just talked about courage and confidence. So can you share that quote and share what like that's meant to you in your life?
Yeah, so it's basically like, what if I fall? And then it's, oh, but darling, but what if you fly? And so that really resonated with me, because whenever I was scared and I'm like, I'm gonna fall, I'm not gonna get it, I'm gonna look stupid, I'm gonna, but then I just keep telling myself, but what if you fly? What if you fly? What if this works out? What if you actually get elected? This would be awesome. So I just kept telling myself that even though I'm scared, and even though, I might fall, I might not get elected, I might be told I'm stupid, but the alternative, but you might get it, and people might really like you and support you. And so that gave me the energy and the confidence that I'm just like, nope, no matter how scared you are, you just got to keep pushing and keep trying. If this is something what you want, go for it, no matter how scared you are. If you want it, keep working for it and going after it.
I always talk a lot in my practice and mentoring and with the Aligned Life mindset stuff is regret always weighs heavier than any emotion, really. And so when you look at that, what if I fall, but darling, what if I could fly? Then, but what if I never try? Like, how can you look back, once we're on our path, how can you just every now and then look over your shoulder a little bit, that rear view mirror, to say, what do I need to do right now so that I don't regret this in a year or in 5 years or on my deathbed, whatever it is, to know that when you look back, you can say, I did everything that I wanted to. I fail, BS, whatever. Right?
That's right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's something I've thought about a lot is, what do I want to have accomplished in this life? I want my life to have meant something and mattered. And a friend of mine said to me once, he's like, what do you want your legacy to be? And so I think about that, and it's like, with flying, that's been a passion of mine. But then with the commission, I'm just like, I want to give back to the community and help people. And that's kind of my driving force with that. And it's like, I want to be somebody that helps people and makes this community better and makes this community grow. And I want to be known for that, for having, reached out and helped people and made a difference in this world. And I want to I have a 12-year-old daughter. So I really want to be an example to her and be like, look what you can do. Look what you can accomplish. You can do anything you put your mind to it, even if it's scary, being a role model for her and for her friends and, anybody really. So
anybody. Well, and I just did in our private, the Aligned Life group, I have a mindset membership, and we did a coaching call on Tuesday, and we talked about this time in the world and how difficult it is and how difficult so many people think it is. And so I talked about, like, there's one piece of transparency and honesty of, like, this does stink sometimes, and I'm not always okay, but if we stay there, we are never going to make a difference. If we stay there, we're never going to be the light for somebody. If we stay there, we're going to look back once again and regret our thought process, our decisions, and our lack of action. So that's what I talked about in that, is like, how do we get to a place that we can acknowledge how we feel, right? Just like you, City Commission, you can acknowledge how overall, how the community feels and how people in it feel, yet we're not going to stay in that suck. How do I help be the light for you so that you can follow something? I mean, otherwise we're just going down this really quicksandy path that is not trailblazed. Everyone's wandering about, which would be really easy in this world right now. So how do you, in your role on the City Commission now, how do you be that light, but not be so bold that people can't relate to you?
Yeah, and so that's definitely a big challenge that I'm learning to deal with, because I think have really shaken things up because I do bring in new opinions and new ideas, and I'm very vocal about my opinions. And I've noticed since then some of the other commissioners have gotten more vocal and more opinionated, which I think is good. And, you know, I do feel strongly about certain issues, but I've noticed a lot of people feel the same way. They're just afraid to speak up. So knowing that there's a large portion of the population that supports me, that feels the same way, it's like, that's why I need to represent these people. I need to be their voice, and I need to stand up for them because nobody else really is. So, you know, I get a lot of positive feedback from people. No, keep up the good work. You're doing a great job. And that's super important to me to get that positive feedback, because I get a lot of negative feedback too, and that's really hard to take. I've had a lot of people, I've had some very nasty phone calls, people saying some very mean things to me. I've had some nasty, nasty emails. And what's sad is a couple of these were people I knew, those were kind of a couple of the hardest ones to take. I'm like, really? You know, I was shocked by that. But, and you know, unfortunately, the negative the ones hit you the hardest. And I have had moments where I'll sit in the afternoon, I'm literally sick to my stomach for hours because they hurt so much. And I'm just like, you know what, I understand where they're coming from, but yet I still have my beliefs. I still know I have a huge people I'm representing, and I have to stay true to those people. And I want to continue to represent and do what I think is best too. And you know, you're not going to make everybody happy. So that's hard. And I know a lot of people will just, like you were saying, just kind of play the gray area and not really stand for anything one way or the other. And unfortunately, I think a lot of commissioners in the past have been really just gray and not taking a stance. So I think that's one area where I'm unique is I am definitely taking a strong stance. But most people have responded well to it, and they're like, thank you for representing us and, you know, holding true to your values.
So anytime we become more polarizing, we have more polarizing feedback, right?
Yes.
So for you, even just going in there as a minority, quote, I'm doing this in quote for everybody listening, that's polarizing enough for a lot of people. Think of, like your coworker said, think of the Good Old Boys Club. Yes. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's all they know. They don't intend ill will. Like, they really don't. But all they ever knew was this is what works, X, Y, Z. So that's what we're going to continue to do. And now you're changing the approach. You're changing the norm. You're shifting. So when we become more polarizing, when we stand for something or when we stand against something, you're going to have the far right or the far left coming back at you. So how do you keep going when there's terrible, yucky, negative comments that make you want to quit? And I know you're not a quitter. You just said you're not a quitter. But how do you continue to say, you know what, like I'm gonna sulk for a little bit, right?
Oh, so to answer your question, the biggest thing that's become important to me, because I will fully admit there are moments, several moments where I'm just like, I just want to escape to the Alaskan wilderness and not see anybody and just escape from the whole thing and just go into my own little bubble and not see anybody. I definitely have moments, quite a few like that. But what keeps me going is my network of like friends, my network of even people I don't know that have been writing to me and sending me messages of positivity. And they're just like, keep going. You got this. You got it. And that is so important to me to have people reach out. And then, you know, even with social media, it's been a really valuable tool for me to be able to correspond with so many people directly and have people, be really positive and supportive. And I do need that a little bit, because I think if I didn't have that, it would be very discouraging to only hear the negative side of it.
Totally. I just posted something on Instagram, Facebook, I don't know, today, that said, find your people based on your future, not your history. And so that's so interesting with like what you just said, is how important our people are, because and we get to pick them. We don't have to pick our family as our people. We don't have to. If they don't think we're going to be great in that role, they're not your person to talk to when it's a struggle. So how have you, has your circle of influence changed over the last little bit here?
Oh yeah, that you bring up a really, really, really good point. Okay, especially about the family.
Yeah.
I love my family, but we do not agree on anything lately. And it has been a challenge because I've got, I'll get together with them in a group, and lately we just end up fighting. And so I'm at a point where it's like, okay, I love my family, but they're not the people I can rely on right now, because they're not the ones that are supporting me. They're not the ones that agree with my point of view. So when you said choosing your network and choosing your people, that has had to adjust, who are the people I'm going to go to for support and for strength. And it's definitely evolved into, some quite a few new friends, honestly, that have similar values to what I have.
Totally. And I, one thing I talk a ton about is our values change all the time, and it changes in stress makes our values change. So just think of the last year of you deciding to do this and you marketing and you got it. And that's stress. So anytime there's more stress, our values shift. And so many of us don't address different priorities and actions and beliefs because we didn't even know our values changed. And I would say circle of influence is the primary, because now we're kind of, we feel different, we act different, we interact differently, yet our old circle is still what old you was.
Right.
That's not serving you to your future, like future versus your history, right? And it's knowing, and it takes, once again, I think one of the themes of today is courage and confidence. It takes courage. Just realize like, they're not my tight circle. That doesn't mean you wouldn't do freaking anything for them. But in this space of where you need support, if they can't give it to you, it's okay. And there's no judgment. It just is what it is. And then you start to attract more people who are your people, right?
100%. That is absolutely correct. And, I knew my values and my family values aren't necessarily the same, but it's just, I think maybe in the role that I'm in right now, they've gotten almost more defensive against me because they know I have a little bit of pull or, with the community. And so they just fight me on like everything, like, with school, like they don't believe schools should be open right now for like another year, that type of thing, where I believe they should be. So it's just almost everything. We find ourselves on different sides, and it's just like, what? I think it would be healthier if we just don't talk about this. Maybe just give yourselves some separation right now.
Yeah. And I can relate to you just because in my line of work, it's, I don't practice in a medical model. The way I practice is not, it's very holistic. It's life, it's balance, it's all those things. And so I can relate. My circle of influence totally changed in the beginning because the beliefs that need to go with it are not open the medicine cabinet and take a pill for this one thing that you're struggling with. I believe that is not the way to a healthy life. And so once again, once you stand for something, you're going to get a lot of pushback on the people that stand against that same thing.
Yep.
But all they really want is to protect you. So if we were to break it down, they don't want you being bashed in the newsletter. Or in the newspaper. They don't want you to be bashed online. So they're trying to be this like protector of great things, which I appreciate. Yet that might not serve you in your space right now, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So that's been a hard thing. And I know with some people, their family's opinion is everything to them, and that's what matters so much to them. And they're just like, well, if my family disagrees with this or whatever, then I just have to go with my family. Where with me, I'm just like, you know what? I got to go with what I believe in, and whether it's what they agree with or not, I have to go with my values and what I believe in. And so those are the people, like you said, I need to surround myself with, is the people that feels the same.
That's awesome. Okay, so I want to talk about we just talked a little bit about Fargo Commission, West Fargo Commission, and just get a little bit of nuts and bolts and how sometimes the little pieces of courage is what actually builds you. So you had to go door to door. You had to get 300 signatures, which I did the same thing opening my business 15 years ago, but it makes my tummy totally twirl.
Yes.
So
Yes.
tell me what happens in you, because you've overcome a lot of things and you continue to push yourself knowing that you're going to fly and you're not going to fail. Tell
Yep.
me what happens when you get that little fluttery, Mandy, I don't think you should do this, like the ego speaking, right? I don't think you should do this. This is too hard. They won't like you. They're not going to, all the crap that our head says. How do you say, shh, this is what I'm going to do? Tell me.
Well, that quote that I said, what if you fall? Oh, but darling, what if you fly? I kind of tell myself to use that one over and over and over. And then the other thing is, he said, you have to get those 300 signatures. They all have to be West Fargo. And so to guarantee that, the door-to-door thing, I'm like, okay, I know they're going to be West Fargo residents this way. And the other thing is, not everybody signs your petition to get on the ballot. Now I've gotten doors slammed in my face. I have no idea who you are, so I'm not going to sign it, or, some different things like that. And so then I tell myself, the next one, I'm one door closer to getting it. I'm one door closer to getting it. I'm one door closer to getting it. And I've heard other people talk about that, like in sales, they're just, every no is one more step in the direction to a yes. And so I tell myself those things too. So just continuing to have those conversations in my head is the only way I got through it, really, because there were days that were tough. Most of the time was pretty good. Most of the time people were like, hey, you're willing to go door to door in January and February when it's cold in the winter and do this. You must really want it. So I'll sign your petition, even though, I'm an unknown person. They're like, I can see you work hard and that you're dedicated to this. So most people were really positive. It's just, every now and then just a negative. That's just what I had to tell myself to get through it. So
Totally. Okay. So one last question. What do you want for the West Fargo community? I've been West Fargo resident for 15 years. We didn't grow up here. We grew up in Devil's Lake, but this is this is our home. So you represent me as much as my whole neighborhood also, but what do you want for us? What do you see in your 4 years? What do you want to create?
Yeah. I want people to have the best possible experience of living here that they can. So I've come to really love this community because I travel with aviation. I travel all over the country and I see what other communities look like. And I always think to myself, I appreciate Fargo even more. I appreciate what we have to offer. We have great schools, great parks. We're a clean community. We have, a safe community and good jobs and all of this kind of stuff. So that's all important to me. And I want to keep that going. I want to make sure that we can continue to have, to me, one of the very best communities to live in the entire country. And I think there are some things we can do to help improve our quality of life. When I was going door to door, one of the biggest issues people had was our taxes. That was a huge issue. Our taxes are high, our special assessments are really high. And the special assessment issue was the biggest issue that I ran on, and so many people were upset about that. So that's been something I really want to try and work on, how we pay for infrastructure and how that process is done. So continuing to work with the city staff and the other commissioners on ways to change our tax structure and our special assessment structure is a big thing for me. I also, going through everything we're going through right now, and I really want to continue to have that sense of community. And that's something people tell me they like about West Fargo over Fargo, is they feel like we have more of a small town community feel. And I want to keep that going. And, there's people right now that, kind of want to stop all that community feeling. And for me, I want to keep that going. I think it's so important. People like, for our mental health, it's important to still, have community events and get together as a community. And even though there's controversy over it, I really feel that that's important, is connecting with people, connecting as a community and still being able to do that. So those are just the few things that I would like to, continue to ensure, with our community.
I love that. So if people do have, do you openly welcome feedback on Facebook?
Yeah.
People just message you. How would somebody give a suggestion or?
Yeah, absolutely. So I talk to anybody about anything. I've had a lot of people reach out to me. They want to meet for coffee. They want to have a phone call. They want to have a Zoom conference. They want to just message back and forth. I'm willing to listen to pretty much anybody. I can't always agree with everybody, but I'll listen to anybody who wants to talk to me. So I'm very, very open door policy. Facebook is a great place to reach out to me. LinkedIn works too. I'm on LinkedIn. so you can message me, you can email me. My personal, I think my personal email is listed on Facebook, but my city email, I check that every day too. Under the City Commission website, my personal phone number is listed under the West Fargo City Commission website. So you're free to call, free to email. Yeah, I'm more than open to talking to anybody, listening to suggestions anytime.
That's why I love about you. I saw a post, when was it? Was it last week? That was quite transparent, which is what you've been the whole time. Like, wow, she's got some kahunas. But like, that's what makes people feel safe and comfortable too, that you can put it out there, that people aren't hiding, and that you can actually explore. I mean, I imagine, the more well-rounded we are, the more perspective we have. The more perspective you have from the people of West Fargo, the better job you're going to do, right?
Absolutely.
Because there's an energy, there's a community energy, and then there's a person energy of like just feeling into like, oof, there's going to be some strong opinions that come from this decision, or that, man, it's just easier to talk about it instead of keep it under the covers until it comes out, and then that's no good. You know?
Exactly. I think I'm probably the most transparent one by a lot on the commission, and I'm probably the most accessible. I'm probably the one socializing with the people more than anybody else, because I notice, like you said, a lot of people, they just kind of, it's like they get elected and then they just kind of hide in the shadows, and they don't want to say anything one way or the other because they don't want the controversy. They're not talking to people, and I feel like they're kind of disassociated with what's important to the public. Where it's like, for me, I'm engaging with people, I'm talking to people, and yeah, sometimes it's not always easy because it's not always positive feedback, but it's like, but that's what's important, is to be in touch with the people in the community and what's important to them.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to leave our people with any last anything? Advice? Whatever.
So I think the best advice could be, with what I've gone through with my entire career, being a pilot, being a commissioner. I'm also a single mom. The father of my child actually passed away in an accident. So that's something too I've had to deal with. So, even I have been through some struggles. I know what it's like to be like, I'm alone in this world. I'm a parent. How am I going to do this as a single parent with a child? It's having that network of people is so important. And that's how I've been able to do what I've been able to do, is by, having family that's helped me, by having friends that's helped me, and not being afraid to reach out to people. Because if I didn't reach out sometimes and be like, I need help, and people are really good about that, and people want to help. And I've actually had friends reach out to me and say, I will help you. If you need, your daughter to stay overnight at my house for the night, just call me anytime. And I have had to do that and reach out, because that's, as a pilot, I'm gone weekends, nights, evenings, overnights. My schedule is really weird. And so I have had to do that. I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So don't be afraid to reach out. People want to help. People want to be there for you. And we're a community, the saying, it takes a village, let people help you. And and you can achieve anything you want. You really can. Don't be scared. Be scared, but do it anyway,
Totally. Yeah, totally. What's that book called? Feel the fear and do it anyway. Oh, I read that like 10 years ago. I'm like, oh, yes.
Wow.
So it's not so much of a, okay, I feel this anxious tummy and my heart is beating and I'm sweating. That's my sign to stop. No. If it's in your gut and it's within what you want to achieve and it's your purpose, like, you got to feel that and have that empower you to fly. And just know that there is no fail, right? There is no fail in your mind, in your left brain. There's fail. There's not any fail. I believe it's all based on what you learn from it and what your lessons are. So
100%, I agree with that, because it's like the only fail is not to try.
Totally. I'm really excited to see what you do with the community, and the fact that you are allowing us to follow your light is really, really important. So even when things get hard, just know that there's people following your light. So understand how to take that criticism in and allow it to let go and fuel you to continue to shine the flashlight on that path, because we're all behind you. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, keep doing it. Kick but work.
Thank you for listening and following the Aligned Life podcast with Dr. Tiffany. If you love this and can think of anyone who needs to hear about it, would you mind sharing with them? Find me online at drtiffanyjohnson.com, where you can find out more about my memberships, courses, mentoring, and any upcoming events. To learn more about chiropractic for you and your family, go to htchiro.com and follow our social pages. I can't wait to connect with you soon, and until then, be you, be aligned.